Thank you guys for another Trees Talk. I'm here with Reillor Davis. I consider him a pretty good friend already, I have to say, although we haven't known each other that long.
Instant connection.
It really was an instant connection. Reillor is the first person associated with the fashion industry, I think, that I've talked to. And, you know, I do have some experience with the fashion industry, not directly, but my ex-wife Hillary went to Rhode Island School of Design for textile design. I think maybe we talked a little bit about that.
We briefly talked about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it really opened my eyes to the amount of the layers of culture that are involved in that industry.
For real, man. So many different types of cultures.
Yeah.
Just and like with clothing, man, like it's just like any type of art form, right? It's just a way to express yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, like, for me growing up, like, that was, like, instantly the first thing that gravitated towards me.
Was it?
Yeah.
In terms of, do you mean in terms of, like, just expressing yourself that way? Or
yeah. Like, my mom, like, she always, like, when she used to tell me, like, yeah, when you were in kindergarten, like, I picked out your clothes, and then you're like, no, I didn't want to wear
really?
that. Yeah. And then I picked out my own outfit. And then from then on, from kindergarten as an adult now, like, I've always just picked my own clothes. And, you know,
I'm curious to know, at what point did you realize that you wanted to actually, you know, do that as a sort of a vocation or work in that field professionally?
Well, I feel like maybe when I was like 18.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was going to school, or after I graduated from high school, it was kind of like in a place where I didn't know what to do with my life. You know?
And you were not in L.A.
No. I grew up in Colorado Springs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Colorado Springs, Colorado. That's where I went to high school and stuff. And
yeah.
When I was that age, I didn't know what to do, and I was just kind of like in a weird place. I was just like, all right, am I going to join the military?
Really?
Yeah, because most of my family is military.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So my mom's side of the family, like my uncles, or even on my dad's side of the family, I have an uncle that's in the military.
Right.
But just kind of lost, and one day my uncle was like, you know, because he always knew I liked clothes and shoes, and one day he was just like, well, why don't you just make your own clothes? And at first I was like, why do I do that? You know what I'm saying? And
why don't you do that?
Yeah, why don't I do that? And how do I get started? You know, I had all these questions and stuff like that. But
and how old you at that point? You were 18?
I was 18, yeah. And
interesting.
Then what was it? Maybe from there, like I was like, all right, what do I want to do? And then so I started brainstorming, started thinking of things to do. And then me, my brother, and some friends, we created our own like streetwear brand in Colorado Springs.
Just right away.
Like, maybe it took me like a year or two, you know what I'm saying? And then
that's
I was trying to
quick, man. Don't you think? That's unusual? Maybe not.
I don't know. Like, it was just like, it was just different because it wasn't something that I had something to mold myself with locally. You know, like if I was living here in LA, there's just so many other brands that I can see and try to make a mold of like how I would create something. And so, I mean, luckily I did have the internet, so that helped out, you know, tremendously.
Yeah, of course.
But then I just started doing stuff that I didn't know until I was older what those positions were. Like I was resourcing, trying to figure out how much stuff cost.
Right.
So I was project managing, I was designing.
In Colorado Springs. Yeah.
I taught myself how to do Photoshop. Even though I'm not the greatest, I know how to do a little bit of stuff.
Dude, I bet you're better than I am.
And and you know, and like YouTube, man, like YouTube showed me how to do it and stuff like that. So then we created our own line and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you started working professionally, did it change your feeling of taste? Or because here's why I'm asking, because I teach a lot, as you know. And I definitely have not a huge amount, but definitely a good block of students who, when they find out what it takes to actually be in the field, they're like, oh man, this is no fun anymore. Like having to actually be in the workaday world and like deal with people's taste and realize that it's a service industry. Actually, all art really is in some way, right? And they are just, what? They were like, I didn't sign up for this. Yeah. And I'm curious if you ever had a moment like that. Or,
oh yeah, for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Definitely. Do you mind talking? Like.
I felt like so my first job in the industry, I was working for a licensing company, and I would say it did in a way like both ways, like good and bad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because the bad, you start learning how much waste, you know, the fashion industry is, and kind of how like you know, you kind of feel like there's a bullying aspect to fashion in a way too.
How so?
Because I feel like if you don't have like a certain sense of style or the way that you look or maybe the brands that you're wearing, people may judge you for that. Because even growing up, that was a big thing in like middle school and high school. Like if kids didn't have name brand stuff, people would make fun of you. You know, they would make, you know, so that's one aspect of fashion, and that was heightened once I got in the industry, because I'm just like learning and going to these trade shows and just kind of seeing how bougie and gatekeeper-ish it is. You know? And the waste, like I said, the waste of like how much stuff we throw away and how unsustainable things can be. So those two main things that kind of drew me, you know, away, like I would say the negatives. But the positives were just like, you know, just understanding how a garment's being made, you know what I'm saying? And then meeting cool people that share the same passion as you, because living in Colorado, there's not a lot of people that are interested in the same things as far as like fashion, sneakers and stuff like that. There might be like a small handful of people at the time, at least when I was living there. But here it's like, you know, you talk the same language with anybody and they understand what you're saying, and you can dress the way that you want to, and no one's more weird than you are. And I feel like when you're in Colorado, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb. So
do you feel like it was good training though, to just like, I grew up in Des Moines, but I can imagine you faced more difficulties than I did.
Living in Colorado and being into because I feel like being in fashion and being very maintenance, you know, male. People would already assume that you're, you know, homosexual.
That's right.
Or anything like that. And for me, luckily, like in high school and stuff, or like even growing up, I just always was just true to myself. Like I had really good role models that really made me feel like, wow, you should just be yourself, you know? And so even with my friends growing up, they would always make fun of me because I like bright colors. And then as I got older, they'd always make fun of me because I like girly drinks. And I'm just like, you know what? Hey, you guys can hate on me all you want. Like I'm being true to myself. You know what I'm saying?
Did they come around?
I mean, maybe later. I feel like some people that I'm not friends with anymore. And then I look back and I'm just like, kind of like I told you so a little bit, but but there's, you know, for me, I'm just like, there's no reason for even, you know, to even have those conversations.
No.
But I feel like that was one of the things growing into the fashion industry. Like you'll notice right away is like, that's the first assumption that people throw on you is like, oh, this person's probably homosexual because, you know, you're into clothes and, you know, all that other stuff. So
it's interesting because I was talking to a friend of mine a couple months ago about this, and he said he thought that younger males, like, and maybe we're talking about your generation, but maybe even like the younger generation, seem way more comfortable with gender fluidity, not even in terms of sexuality, but more just in terms of expressing themselves.
Oh yeah, I think I'm seeing that more. Also, like I have younger cousins and stuff like that, and I see it more because like that's what they see on like the rappers that they listen to, the people they see on TV, on the internet. One of the trends that I see that is very gender fluid is you'll see now males are painting their fingernails.
Well, I'm thinking of it even like BTS and, you know, K-pop. I mean, it's very interesting. And then you know, then I was sort of thinking about this. It's interesting because if you look at history, like for example, even in European history, you know, in European opera in the 18th century, female roles were sung by castrati who were castrated and their voice went up, and almost all those super coloratura like opera parts were actually for males who were castrati. I don't know if you ever saw that movie called Farinelli. It's kind of it's really cool. Anyway. So, and now there are countertenors in classical music, but they're not castrated and they just sing high. And they're amazing. So, I mean, I think that gender fluidity has always been around, but maybe just is getting more accepted in mainstream
I think so
culture.
Too. Yeah, because now, you know, you're being represented. You see it being represented more in mainstream. You know what I'm saying? So it makes people feel comfortable. You know, so
that's really good.
Definitely, because I could see, like, you know, I mean, I'm 33, but growing into high school, middle school, it was always kind of a thing that you wouldn't be able, especially in the black community, like, you wouldn't express that you're homosexual.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at least in my experience. You know what I'm saying?
Why do you think that is? I mean, maybe you don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know that, but I feel like, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
You know, it's interesting because I've been watching a lot of K-dramas, and apparently I've heard that in Korea it's really not cool to be trans. And it's like, it's interesting that But then BTS is so huge. It's a weird contradiction. Yeah. But I guess cultures have those weird contradictions.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know what, it's like I was saying earlier, is if you're comfortable with who you are and in your own skin, then so, you know, be who you are. You know what I'm saying? And it's up to other people to accept it. But as long as you've already accepted within yourself who you are, then, you know, you can't change people. I mean, you can, but, like, there's no reason for you to try. Like,
no, well, by the way, I agree with you now. I mean, I think I always wanted to agree with you. But you've gotten to a place at 31, you said?
Oh, I'm 32 now. I said 33. I'm going to be 33. I'm 32.
Oh, Reillor. Accuracy, no. To me, it's all the same at this point. But, you know, it seemed maybe that's what part of the connection when we met was, because I could feel that. Yeah. That you're. It's interesting when you meet somebody who's really comfortable in their skin, that they don't feel like they have anything to prove. Yeah. But they're really interesting.
Definitely. That's how I feel like
that's cool.
We connected because I felt I was like, oh man, this guy Joe, he's interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Good ideas and just a genuine person.
Thank you, man.
I think that's kind of one of the things that we connect with instantly. You know?
No, definitely. Well, the other, another thing that I was thinking about, I mean, particularly when I thought about, even how I wanted to quote bill you. I mean, I don't even like that word, but you do have to do those kinds of things when you do these, podcasts and whatever, social media. But you called yourself a creative, which it's not a term that I grew up with, though I quite like it. And I've talked to quite a few of my guests, maybe just coincidentally, are people who have multiple practices, multiple interests. Mm-hmm. And so I'm interested to hear you. I don't know if you have any observations about that with yourself, or
I feel like it's a easier word to say besides saying like you're an artist, because I feel like because for me I feel like I'm a creator because I just like to make different things. Yeah. But I still have that the feeling of imposterism in some things that I do.
Do you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I keep telling myself, like, if I'm interested in it, then I should just do it, because what I'm thinking now is like, during quarantine, I've started thinking more as like a child. Mm-hmm. Like with more curiosity. Instead of having to think like, oh my God, if I do this, what are people going to think, or how are they going to react to this? Yeah. But as a child, you get into this childlike creativity where you're creating. Yeah. It doesn't matter what anyone else is thinking of what you're doing, but you made it because it fulfilled you.
But those are the things that communicate to people every time.
Yeah, and it makes you more, I feel like there's a sense of authenticity in that, because you're just like, it's just so pure. Like, you just created from somewhere that no one else is going to be able to be inside of you. Yeah. So you just release it, and you're like, it's not up to me anymore. Like, this is my art. I put in my heart in it, and I'm satisfied with it. Whatever else anyone thinks of it, it's not up to me anymore.
That's very inspiring to hear you say that. I mean, first of all, the fact that you can admit that you have the imposter syndrome. And by the way, dude, I have it all the time, like every morning. Yeah. But I think so many people feel that. And I think I used to feel this way before my recovery, that if I had the imposter syndrome, that there was actually something wrong with me, and that maybe I'm not an artist because I have the imposter syndrome, which is like a double whammy. Oh yeah. It's like this terrible cycle, right? Yeah. But I talked to students a lot about this, and one time I heard, I don't know if you ever listened to that NPR show Fresh Air with Terry Gross, where she interviews people. It's an older. My generation listens to it more than yours does, but she's a good interviewer. Anyway, she was interviewing, Gene Hackman, that? Yeah. Okay, everybody knows Gene. A million. He's been in like 300 movies. He's like your actor's actor. Yeah. Amazing, cool guy. And she was asking him, she said something like, "Oh yeah, Gene, you've been in like 300 movies, and it must be really nice to like know, that you're a master and that you're comfortable." And he goes, I can't quote it, but he basically said, "You know what, Terry? I throw up before every first day, and I feel like I'm fraud."
Yeah, man. It's just a feeling,
it's not about whether you're good or not good, or whether you won 10 Academy Awards. It is just a feeling. And what I learned in recovery is that those feelings don't have to rule you, and if you try and stamp them out, that's when you're fucked. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah. But if you just embrace them and let them be in there, it's like what a lot of tennis players say, you use the nerves. Mm-hmm. Roger Federer and Nadal also get super nervous. Everybody gets nervous before they play a match.
You get nervous, but it's like when I get nervous, I just feel like, okay, these are like little butterflies telling me, like, all right, you ready? You prepared? All right.
And means you're into it.
Yeah, and I think going back to just the imposter syndrome, or feeling like an imposter, like one of the things that I felt like recently about that is like screenwriting. Because that's one of the things that I've gotten into during quarantine.
Right. Okay.
Me and my brother were thinking of different, like, either we were working on a scripted podcast, and we were doing voice acting, and then we were doing, writing different scripts and stuff. And then, like, I started going to these seminars, like, online,
You mean about writing screen?
Yeah, screenwriter seminars. So I started doing those once a month.
Right.
And it helped so much because this one lady talked about feeling like an imposter.
Right.
And it made me feel so comfortable because she was just talking about, like, she had switched careers and then she didn't know if she was good enough.
Right.
But it's like, sometimes you need to get lucky sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
For sure, yeah.
And so with her, she just got lucky. And that's how she explained it. She's like, I got really lucky because I had good mentors, and I was able to transition from my old career to another, seamlessly. Yeah. But feeling like an imposter is just something that you just, like, at least for me, I feel sometimes like, just chill out, like, and I think like a child again. Like, I'm like, what? Just think like a child. If you're having fun doing it, do it. Yeah. And create what you have in your mind, and then when you're finished, like for me, when I finish something, it's so satisfying because you're just like, man, I have completion.
Yeah, I am. I'm starting to. I don't know. Maybe this is crazy, but I'm starting to think that having the imposter syndrome sometimes is actually helpful. Yeah. I mean, it sounds weird, but what I mean by that is that it kind of could be seen as a possible humility check, And as long as, it's almost like anything. You know how, like, if you drink even water, right? We have to drink water, but you can die from drinking too much water, right? I mean, so anything in ill proportions puts your life out of balance. Yeah. So
the biggest thing that gets me though is just like about feeling the amateurism feeling like an amateur, and then also an imposter at the same time. Right. So when you meet someone that actually does that, you feel like, oh shit, I am not on your level, so I don't want to tell you about my ideas. So those things still creep up on me.
Of course, me too.
People that are in a field that I'm like interested in, or I'm curious about, or I'm doing currently.
But that's really cool that you can even see the fact that you can actually say that, though. Don't you think? I mean, to me, that means that it's not ruling you quite. Being able to admit that is.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, all right, well, you have more experience than me. Like, it is what it is, but I still I have that feeling still where I'm just like, you know what I'm saying?
I think a lot of people. I remember this guy. I won't say his name. I like the guy. He's nothing terrible, but this guy was one of the biggest selling artists in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, this dude was just lights out every show. Every show he sold everything all the time. Yeah. So a lot of artists are like, man, that's the measure of success. But for him, he couldn't get the respect of the museums. Like, he couldn't get people to write essays about his work and to write reviews of his work. He never had. I don't think he ever had a review. And it killed him. It didn't literally kill him, but it really it ate away at him. Yeah. And we were all just going like, dude, what the fuck, man? You're making like hand over fist money, and people love your work, but it wasn't enough for him. Yeah, I'm not sure he's painting anymore. Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That is crazy because, like, as a creator, you want to feel what is your goals and like what's going to validate you to what your success is. I think that's an important thing that you have to make an agreement with yourself.
Well, that is very true, man.
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I think that I think every artist, every creative has to do that. Yeah. And maybe it also kind of, a friend of mine, one of my good friends who lives in Redondo Beach I went to college with him, and he's my doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I told you. Yeah. And so, but the interesting about doctors is that they constantly are having to take classes every few years to stay up on knowledge.
New technology.
And I feel like that's a good analogy for, like, you might have to make an agreement with yourself not just once. See, I think when I was... Right? But I didn't know that. I had this kind of idea that it's like grad school. Like, you go to grad school and you get a master's. It's not even a good... I wish they would change the name. Yeah. Because I'm not a master of anything, man.
Master of none.
Disaster.
Master of none.
Yeah. I mean, but there is this implication of like, oh, someday I'm going to wake up and I will be a master and I can just paint great. Yeah. I'll never struggle again. And it's so stupid. It's really misguided, but there is like this weird... I don't know if that ever occurred, if you ever think about that.
No, I do. I feel like sometimes as creators, you do get in these funks and you feel like, you know, like, where are you going from here kind of thing.
Right.
And it's like, goes back to the agreement of, like, what is important to you. Like, is living off your art and being wealthy, is that your success? Is that your goal?
Yeah.
Or, you know what I'm saying? Or it's just like an agreement that you have with yourself and what your goals are.
Yeah.
And once you make those, those things, and you just keep reaching them, like,
yeah.
I feel like then, like, at least for me, it builds confidence,
Yeah.
Once you finish, like, even when you're making your art, I bet it feels so good to finish one, and then you're just like, oh shit, this is good, I'm getting better. Better.
I mean, when I didn't make work for 5 years at all, not a single piece, and I tell you, man, it was real. The first drawing I made, I was in recovery, I was in my program, mm-hmm. and I looked to my left, and this guy, really interesting face, and I was like, I'm going to draw this guy, just for hell of it. Yeah. And I fucked it. The first one, it was terrible. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do one more, and it somehow just clicked. Yeah. And that sense of completion, I mean, it's not like I would ever show anybody this drawing or show it.
But that got you rolling.
It really did. Like, the feeling of connecting with the materials and actually nailing down. It was not an egotistical thing. It's not like I thought I was good. Yeah, it's almost like you just hook into this energy. Yeah. Like, I remember Stravinsky, the composer, said he didn't write the Rite of Spring, the famous piece that he got famous for. Mm-hmm. It wrote itself through him, and I just think that that's a really cool.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good way to think, because it's like consciousness.
You're a medium. Yeah, and the music, and I do think that Greek mythology has a keen insight into human nature. The idea of the muse, it can leave you. Mm-hmm. You are not in control of it. Yeah. And it can also come back. I mean, so I'm pretty inspired by artists who maybe they quit for a while and they come back. You got
to take a break sometimes. Like.
Well, there's this poet I don't remember where he lives now. I think he's from Pittsburgh, of all places. Jack Gilbert. I think he died recently. He's an American poet, and he literally quit writing for like 20 years or 15. I mean, he pretty much sounds like you just quit. Yeah. Like anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who would think you'd ever?
And then he wrote poems about it. He's like, I was living my life, and my wife died of cancer, and I took care of her, and his poems are just searingly sad, mm-hmm. But they're really real.
Yeah, it's like real life.
So.
Right?
And like, I don't know, it's that statement that you're only as good as your latest piece is kind of harsh, but it also means even if you quit for 20 years and you come back, now you're back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's true.
It's interesting.
It is pretty interesting.
So another question I have is, do you find that being interested in many things is something that you have always, it's been true for you, or did that develop organically?
I think it has been pretty much my whole life. Like, I've always been into like a lot of different things, music, video games. Like, mm-hmm. It's funny because my mom would always say, like, you always try something, then you quit it. Like, you never stick with anything. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, like, when I was little, I was doing karate. Yeah. I was playing basketball. I was playing football. I was doing all these different things, and I would stop doing it. And then, I'd find something else I would like. Yeah. And so I think growing up that way mm-hmm. kind of led to it being even a bigger deal as I've aged and stuff, and just experienced life more. Yeah. To where I'm like, oh my god, I like this now. Like, like, even with pickleball, I'm like, oh my god, I love pickleball. Like, what the hell? Like, who would ever thought?
Tell me about it, man.
So I just feel like those interests just started popping up, and then like mm-hmm. I started just being more confident in myself and just trying to do them, and just instead of
trying to limit it.
Yeah, or being afraid to even try.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally, man. I mean, as a teacher, one of the things some of my colleagues and people, I actually had this big argument with this guy. I like this guy, but you know him, mm-hmm. a pickleball guy. Okay. And he's older than me a little bit, but he's basically my generation. Mm-hmm. And he and this other woman were like, oh, this generation, millennials. You're younger than you're on the cusp.
Yeah, I don't
know
where I'm at.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. I don't care. I hate the labels. But they were just like, oh, these millennials, they never do anything right. You know the cliche, mm-hmm. entitled, don't work hard, are lazy, blah blah blah.
I agree with some of it.
No, but okay, no. I think
not fully, but it could be those.
No, it can. But here's what I said to them. I said, you know what? No generational judgment is true. It just doesn't, it's like you can't make a monolith of any group. It's what leads to racism too. It's all the same problem. Yeah. Individuals are complicated, and But I actually think that, and I might be justifying my own weird practice, because the truth is, Reillor, when I draw, I'm like 3 lines, Instagram, get a drink.
I'm the same way.
I figured you might be, because we have this connection. But my point is that I started making much, much better work recently when I just went with that.
When you had all those things going on?
When I just accepted that not only is it okay to do it, it's actually advantageous to me to do that.
You want to hear what I do?
Yeah, I do.
So, like,
definitely.
Recently, like when I'm writing, like when I'm like just writing or whatever, or like typing it out, I have to have TV on.
Yeah.
And the noise off. Like I'll be watching either a basketball game or just like something on YouTube. Like it has to be like maybe something that I don't have to pay attention about. So I'll go on YouTube and put like a full basketball game.
Yeah, I've done that.
And then I'll have my notebook, like just like my diary on my bed, and then I have my desk where I have my computer and my other journal.
Yep.
And then I'll play music.
Right.
And then of course I'll have my phone on the desk. So I have like so many different things going on. Yeah. So like if I get stuck with like, okay, what is this character's? How's this character supposed to sound? And then you know what? I'll take like a quick break. I'll watch the game for a little bit.
Yep.
I'll come back to. You know what I'm saying?
I do. It's like cycling.
And it maybe takes a longer time to get to where I need to get, but once I get into a flow of writing,
totally.
Then I'm just like, okay, I'll spend longer time on it until I need a break again.
That is great to hear you say that. There's a famous pre-pop artist named Robert Rauschenberg. I bet you've heard his name. Maybe not. It's okay.
You know all the artists, man.
Well, dude,
I feel like an amateur, man. See, I'm
no, Reillor. No, dude, come on, man. I'm an amateur. Okay, you want to talk fashion? You can.
No, I'm not like super.
You're gonna lap me. Whatever. We have different interests. We have some overlapping interests. Yeah. But what I was gonna say is that he is famous for working on 10 different silkscreen paintings all at once, and he laid them all on the floor, and he had 2 TVs on at the same time on different channels, and he was just swilling vodka the whole time.
Ooh.
And he's a brilliant artist. And then there's this other story, this classical pianist named Glenn Gould, who's one of my favorite classical pianists, really eccentric Canadian pianist, this sounds crazy, man. He talked about preferring to practice with some incredibly loud noise, like a vacuum cleaner is what he talked about. So loud that he couldn't actually hear himself play, and it gave him this interesting, different feeling of tactile, like not being able to hear the notes made him have a different relationship to the touch of playing the piano. That's and the disconnection was actually, I'm just saying for him, not for anybody else. He's a weirdo. But it's like that, I'm sure people were just like, dude, you are fucking crazy. Yeah. But he was amazing.
Yeah.
So just like the things that people do, and the fact that we can handle multiple sensory inputs.
Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes I'm just super ADD, and
I am too, though.
You know what I'm saying? I need to get up, I need to do this, I need to do that.
Yeah.
That's just kind of.
But I just think, I've been trying to figure out what it is about Western culture, or just culture in general, that in the past has valued a single focus over multiplicity, over ADD, and I'm concluding part of it is the Protestant work ethic, which I think, which to me is like the dragon I would like to slay at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think because back then they didn't really have other distractions.
Right. I think there's perfectly good reasons. And by the way, I'm not against it. I think some of the greatest things in culture were made that way.
Yeah. Definitely.
But it doesn't mean that one has to stay there. Things evolve and change. And I think a lot of people think evolving and changing means slight micro adjustments, but I'm talking about a complete shift of a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of thankful for my depression, because I think it gave me a chance to have some metaphysical cold water splashed over me.
Yeah.
I'm 54, and a lot of people my age are just like, it's like the turkey with the flag. The flag's popped out and they're done. They're not changing ever again. Yeah. They're done.
And that's one of the things that we talked about when we went to the museum a few weeks ago. It's just like, man, like, that's really cool that regardless of what age you are or whatever, you're still evolving and being able to still create in whatever climate that you're in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now we're living in this social media climate. You know what I'm saying? To where if you're an artist, you need to be able to expose yourself a little bit, or expose yourself the way that you want to be represented. Because now, like, everything that you do is your brand.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
This is your brand. I know. My brand is a little sloppy at the moment. Well, I need to clean it up a little, man. I know that.
But I mean, it's just like getting started. But this is a starting point, and at least you're doing. Because a lot of people that I meet is like you're talking about things, and then like it's never being done. It's just like. So just the fact that you're actually doing is already an accomplishment.
I mean,
itself.
I mean, one of the things that meeting you has been really amazing, and many, I'm going to say younger people. I mean, not like you guys are little kids, but I do think that, this line from this poem that I just read by T.S. Eliot called Four Quartets. My favorite line is, "Old men ought to be explorers," and I have always liked that line. But the funny
should be explorers.
Should be explorers. Yeah, and that's the only. And then there's no conclusion after that. Now, there is more, but it's basically, don't pack it in, dude.
Yeah.
Like go.
You can always learn, right? You can
always change. And I think the word explorer is really the key because it does not imply victory. Because explorers often don't find what they're looking for.
No.
Or they find the wrong thing, which is how this entire country started, right?
Well, I mean, isn't that like a metaphor for life? You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
It's just crazy to think that, like, that's all we're doing, you know what I'm saying? And I think I've noticed that a lot within this last year of just being in quarantine and just understanding, like, questioning things and just understanding, like, okay, well, what the hell is going on in my life? Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Why am I in this place,
Yeah.
But then, like, when things start getting better, you start realizing, like, that's just how life is, man. It's going to be like this.
It is,
right.
What I'm
saying? It's just all about the balance. And
see, I didn't get that for years. I had this, this friend of mine, Gary, always talked about his, I shouldn't, nothing bad. He always talked about how his wife would get stuck in traffic and would literally assume that the traffic was against her, that somebody was working against her personally, taking the universe personally, which is fucking crazy. Right? It's understandable, though. It's human nature.
Yeah.
But that was kind of I think I couldn't take the unfairness of life, like somebody set it up in a way that to hurt me.
I'm telling you, man. And when you get into that mode,
it's not good, man.
It is. It really is, man. But then, like, because I've
how do you get
that? I felt that so much.
So how have you gotten out of it? Sounds like you really seem to have a way. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. What I was gonna say is what got me out of it is just being is gratitude.
Yeah,
gratitude. You know what I'm saying? To where I had to I literally had to wake up every day and just be like, I'm thankful for being able to breathe. I'm thankful for you know what I'm saying?
I do now. Check this out. This is what I do every morning. I do a gratitude list first thing every morning.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the key to my recovery is to actually do it.
Yeah, because it makes you realize how blessed you are. Really.
It really does,
regardless of what religion or anything that you believe in, spirituality, whatever. It just makes you feel like, dude, I'm okay right now.
I never could pray, because, I'm Jewish. I was not particularly religious. But I remember I actually tried to pray when I was a little kid. Like, I felt like I should, or else something bad was going to happen. It's actually a terrible reason to do it.
Yeah, when you're just like...
It's like you're scared. But now I actually think that making a gratitude list actually is my way of praying, weirdly.
Yeah, it really is.
It's interesting,
in a sense, right?
It's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that helped me.
Did you come to that by yourself? That's so amazing if you did.
I feel like...
How did you do that?
Man, I have, like I said, man, I have...
Good role models.
I just have good role models.
Yeah, man, you really do.
I have good people in my life, like friends, family.
But that means you're a good person. I think that... Because I remember reading somewhere, maybe this is... That you know something about a person by the people they choose to surround themselves with.
Yeah. No, and it's true
not judgmentally either.
No, I agree with that because you start weeding people out of your life that aren't the same type of person, or maybe not the same type of person, but aren't. I don't know how to explain it without being negative. Yeah, maybe values or something like that. But like the thing is, though, like the thing that I've started learning in the last couple of years is sometimes people are only meant to be on part of your journey. Not the full ride.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Some people are going to come in and out of your life. Some people are going to leave your life forever, not in like a way of like death or passing, but just in a way where your energies don't match up, and that's okay.
That is okay.
Because you're still projecting, upwardly. At least you're supposed to be. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I was not okay with that in the past because I was just painfully nostalgic, and I could not accept change. Fear of death and change are two of the worst things that I crippled myself with. I was even gonna just say I was gonna blame them passively, but it was me who's doing it. Those aren't real. It's all in your mind.
It's all in your mind, man. And it's just and another thing too.
Dude, I feel like you're a yoga teacher right now.
Nah, man, I'm just going through life just like everybody else.
I know. That's what a yoga teacher would say, though.
You know? Oh shit!
I'm kidding, man.
But no, just like experiencing things in life, and then just finding my own ways of doing it. You know, like I said, I do have good people in my life to help.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But don't you think you're also a good person in other people's lives, man?
I would hope so. I mean,
I don't want to put you on the spot. I would bet you are. You're definitely in my life one. I'll tell you that.
That's good. That's good. But yeah, man, I just feel like, I mean, I'm the oldest of 3, so I feel like I've always been like a
caretaker.
A caretaker in a way, or so like it just comes natural, and then that's just how I was raised. Like, you know what I'm saying. Like,
but you don't seem domineering though. That's an interesting thing about you. I mean, because I do know I'm an older sibling. I'm not really domineering either, but that's because I'm kind of a wimp, or I used to be. but I've known elder siblings who are very like type A.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's not saying, I'm not judging that.
No, I mean just feel like.
But you don't have that energy.
It's
though.
been like me, my brother, my mom, and my sister. It's always been us 4.
Right.
So it's like when you're just used to just being that tight with the people that you're around.
I see.
It makes me. That's how I am with the rest of the people that I'm close with.
You know
what I'm saying?
Yes.
So when I get close to people, I'm just like, yo, I don't really. I have a lot of friends, but then like I only have like a tight circle of certain people that you know that are like my like really good friends. But like it just makes you feel like you know. These are the people that I'm keeping around me because they give off the good energy that I need, and that I'm, because it's like any type of relationship. It's 50-50.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're giving, I'm going to take, but then I'm going to give. You know what I'm saying? Vice versa.
The cool thing about what you're saying, the thing that I think is really great is that describing it as a transaction is not opportunistic. It's just honest. And it doesn't, but see, I don't know that I was ever able. That's interesting. I'm really kind of learning a lot from this conversation. It's really cool, man.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, good. So I mean, it doesn't matter, but it's interesting that I feel the same way about the art world, though, and maybe the fashion. I don't know about the fashion world as much, but there's this cliche that was perpetuated for me in school, which is like, oh, artists shouldn't think about money. It's like, don't sell out. Be pure. And I'm just like. That's fucking bullshit, man. It's like nothing's pure.
No.
And some of the greatest things that have been made in every culture, in every field, were made in commerce. And were made for people. And the artists would not have made that just on their own necessarily. Exactly. And I'm not against making stuff for your own. I think it's great.
I think it's probably like a mixture of both, right? Like you have to have a balance. Like I always think of when I'm doing things as like... like me, I'm more of like a 60-40. And what I mean by that is like I'm 60% more of the creative side, and the 40% more of like the business side.
So you're in. So maybe we could talk a little bit about. I know, God, time is just. Well, we have some time. So your specific interests or duties in the fashion world are geared toward marketing more,
it's
maybe you could describe what you do.
Yeah, so basically I've worked mostly in merchandising.
Merchandising, okay.
And so with merchandising, it's like we're not creating the clothes, so we're not the ones who's designing it and everything like that.
Right.
But in the creative sense, whatever the creative team has made, we're the ones who are putting it together so it could be sold and get into the stores. So it's our jobs to not necessarily market it, but merchandise it into a way to where it looks stylish and people are like, oh, you know what, I like how these things are put together. You guys pick the right colors, because what happens is usually if you're making a line, you're making maybe 200 things, and then you're going to cut that down to probably like 50.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so that's kind of like our job, is like just deciding like, okay, well, these are the ones that we're going to go with.
You're really like a critiquer and an editor and a producer.
Yeah, and we're the communicators.
You're the conduit, conduit.
Because we're communicating with the designers, the creative team, the sales team, the buyers. So we're communicating with all those people, production.
Yeah.
So. But it's fun because I like people, and I like communicating with people. So it's making me have to go into these different rooms and just being able to speak. Well,
I mean, it's very interesting to hear about it for me personally, because I have come to a really interesting place. I used to describe myself. I would describe myself before my recovery in terms of artistically as philosophically an army of one. Even though I do like people, it was me against everybody else. Not really against them, but it was, and I think it was absolutely to my downfall.
Did you feel like it was like what drove you then? Like,
kind of. I mean, it was
the fireman,
and it was part of it. But part of it is I want to be the solitary genius. And the thing is, there really have like Beethoven was a fucking amazing genius. Like he's one of my favorite. He's incredible.
Yeah.
Or Michelangelo. I mean, you pick whoever you want from the pantheon. But there's those guys are really like that.
Yeah.
But that's like Michael Jordan. I mean, you're not going to quit playing basketball because you're not as good as Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah. No,
we wouldn't have an NBA. We wouldn't have any. No, that's crazy.
Just like that is the
That's what I mean. So there's a million other artists in museums whose work I find very moving and beautiful, who are just like worker bees who also specialize in maybe one kind of painting, and they worked with the framers, and and many of them had other jobs and other duties. Like it's so unglamorous when you actually learn the real facts about stuff.
Oh yeah,
and the mythologizing and romanticizing of the artist as this like bad boy or girl or woman, whatever, but this kind of rebel against everybody and doesn't ever listen to authority. It's just not true.
No, man.
I mean, it can be sometimes, but not that often.
Yeah, it's just like a kind of like a cliche, right?
But those cliches really have taken hold of a lot of the popular consciousness of what people think artists are.
Yeah, they just feel like, oh, you couldn't get a regular job.
Do you remember this conversation we had with that guy Mike, the pickleball player, the Asian guy who was with long hair?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a business guy, right? He's like I think he's a really good stock trader.
I think so.
Do you remember? I think you were there for this conversation. We were sitting.
Remind me.
Okay, we were sitting at the picnic table waiting for a game, and me and you were talking, and maybe it was Johnny. Okay, I think it was Johnny. Maybe you weren't there. But anyway, me and Johnny were kind of talking about art and writing and whatever, and Mike started feeling a little uncomfortable, not mad at us, but he felt bad that he wasn't a creative guy. And he goes, oh, my life's boring, man. You guys, I'm like, Mike, nobody's life is boring. Yeah. Humans are, you're a person. By the way, I would wish I knew something about money, and I'm really interested in it. And he just could not quite get his head around the fact that I might be as interested in him as he was in. Like, he felt guilt. He kept apologizing for not being a creative person. First of all, dude, to do any job well, you got to be creative.
Yeah. And it's because sometimes people think of if you're not creative, like you don't draw, or you don't sing, you don't act. You know what I'm saying? Like
they feel bad.
Yeah, and it's just like, no, dude. Like everyone has their own thing.
That's what I keep saying. I'm like, it's just. I mean, to me, being able to draw is just like no different than being able to cook an egg. Why is it badass? It's not even.
I think it's badass because I just appreciate art and I love it.
Okay,
and then
sure.
I can't do the things that you do. So
that's true. Oh yes, okay, fair enough. But I mean, look, dude, I couldn't ever pick out the awesome clothes you're wearing. I mean, see, you don't want to take the compliment.
But see, that's just how it is, though, right?
That is how it is.
You know what I'm saying? Like you don't. Yeah. Like it's like thank you. I guess that's what I should say. Thank you.
No, there's no shits. Anyway. But I got an awesome jacket now. I'm catching up, man. You're helping me catch up. I just want to make sure we don't run out of time. Oh, yeah. Okay, we got like 5 minutes. Well, okay, so it's interesting. We talked a lot. Well, this is great. One of the goals for my podcast is to sort of talk to anybody about what they do and not have it be just a professional discussion, but to really talk about what they find joy in and what they struggle with. And I feel like that just happened naturally.
Dude, that was great. Like it was easy going, and like it made me understand like your process and just who you are as a person and stuff like that. So,
likewise. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's interesting. I'm starting to wonder. Well, one of the things we talked about in the car, I think, it was like I'm a solitary artist in my practice, but sometimes I wonder if actually doing this might be my greater contribution.
Yeah,
I don't know. Who knows?
Well, I mean, like it's just one of those things. Like you were just curious about it, and you went forward. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think about that though in all the different things when you're like? I guess my last question, maybe if it is the last question, is of all the different interests that you have, whether it's fashion, sports, writing, film, music. Do you feel like, oh, I wish I could dominate on that one more, or no?
I like the idea of being a master of that, because that's just my personality naturally.
Yeah.
I don't think I would want to say
right.
The only thing the one thing that I wish I could do that I can't do is everything else I will do.
Yeah.
is that I wish I was like a 6'4" NBA basketball player. That would be like the ultimate goal that I cannot reach, but everything else I will.
Hey man, if you live long enough, you might be able to like get genetically altered.
You know, so I mean, that's one of the things I was just like, man, I wish I could be. But other than that, I'm just like, you know what?
Well, we all have those things. Yeah. I wish I could be like a super amazing concert violinist like my dad. Yeah, I wish I could stand on stage and just like have like an entire like stadium go, wow.
Nah, man. I mean, that's probably how it is when they see your shows, though.
No.
I mean, you told me about the ones in Germany and stuff, so I was
yeah,
like,
but I mean,
they're probably wild about it, man. Just say thank you, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. All right. I guess that's a good way to wrap up, dude.
So I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you
Me
so
too,
much.
man. Thank you all for tuning in. I will let everybody know about the next one, and we'll do it again. Thanks, Reillor.
Thank you.
Peace.
Oh, go ahead. I'll come around.